Welcome. Have a seat. Man, so good to see you. Come up along here. Yes, I am. So excited to see you. Excited to be here with you. It's a little bit bittersweet Sunday for me. So might be cutting in and out here. So some of you guys might think this is awkward, but I usually invite Chris all the time to hang out with me and do that kind of a thing. Sometimes it's awkward around the dinner table, when it happens. But nevertheless, I'm so glad to be here, guys. I miss y'all. This has been, this whole week I've been preparing for this passage to share with you guys, and I keep thinking about all the memories I have. If you are new to New Life, then let me introduce myself. I'm Ed Travers, but most of you guys, I've known for many, many years, and this is kind of like the last night I'm communicating to you as one of the pastors of New Life. So it is, it's just been like full of nostalgia in my head this week, and I'm really excited. So it's been very emotional too. But nevertheless, I am excited to share with you guys kind of like the last time as one of your pastors. So anyway, I think I'm rambling right now, but nevertheless, I'm excited for tonight. Let me say this. I know a lot of you guys are in the midst of finishing up your finals, and I know that you're probably, your minds are kind of like, oh my gosh, I just need a break. I want you to know that during this talk, if you feel the need to just kind of zone out, and I just want you to connect to God tonight at some point. So I've been praying that will be the case, that no matter what I say tonight, if somehow you connect to God, that is the goal. So if you need a minute to just kind of zone out and relax, I want you to know that is totally okay with me. But I am really pumped about sharing this message with you. It's actually the passage I shared the very first time I shared at New Life. So listen, I don't know if you guys know the story of New Life and what was going on in my life at the time. I was in my late 20s. I just started a company. So I was kind of thinking, I'm going to be business guy Ed. I started a company, I became an entrepreneur, and my wife was really freaked out. She's like, what are you going to do? How are we going to make money? I'm like, it'll be fine. And then just as soon as we started the company, one of my best friends at the time and I decided we were going to plant a church at Ohio State too. I mean, what could be better than starting a company and a church at the same time? But here's what happened. We used to come down to Ohio State on High Street on Friday nights, and we would share the gospel with students. We would get into conversations with people, and as we would talk to them, we just got a huge sense of the need for a church, a biblical church community to be on the campus. And so what happened was, he went off to Bible college, and he was going to finish up his education, and I started a collegiate ministry in Gehenna, just at the church called New Life there, and the goal there was just to learn how to minister to college students. And so while I'm starting this company, I'm starting this fledgling ministry in Gehenna, he's off into Liberty University, and for 2 or 3 years we were just constantly praying for OSU, praying that somehow we could start a Bible study down on campus and eventually a church. And then it came time in 2002, the involvement fair was coming up, and we thought we better start a Bible study the year before we plant the church so we can get to know some students. Well, the thing is, we learned it was like July 15th, and the involvement fair was coming up, or whatever it was back then. We had a few weeks to do the involvement fair stuff. And we realized we don't have any students, and we're not registered as a student org, and we have no idea how to do this. So we were, panicking and scrambling. So we just kept praying, God, listen, we know we have to become a student org. Please do something. And so I found out my neighbor across the street was a PhD student in his last year, and I asked him, I said, would you be the president of New Life? He said, yeah, absolutely. I said, great. Then I found these two guys who were random people who would show up at the ministry in Gehenna. They would show up once a month kind of guys, you know what I'm saying? Really, they were getting hammered most weekends, and they sometimes would show up. And I said to them, I said, look, I need your help. And they said, what do you need? I need a vice president and a treasurer. And they said, dude, we're your guy. I'm like, we have a student organization, people. We have it. And so that's what we did. We started a student org. Here's the problem. We did not have an advisor. So I'm like, if you don't have an advisor, you're not a student org. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So I called a friend of mine who worked for Campus Crusade. I'm like, who's your advisor? They told me the name. I said, sweet. I called the guy immediately. I said, hey, yeah, I'm friends with so-and-so. Yeah, we're doing this little thing. We just need, a little sign off on a paper. Sign it. Good, no problem. We're set. I had never met the guy. I've never talked to him for more than 5 minutes, and he became our advisor. It was awesome. So we started at the Student Involvement Fair to recruit students, and we prayed. God, please give us like 12 freshmen, because that's the magic number, 12. Jesus had 12 guys. There are 12 tribes of Israel. We need 12 freshmen. That's all I'm asking for. So we prayed, and we did the first Involvement Fair, and we had our first Bible study, and 6 students showed up. I was like, God, like we're halfway there, God, what's going on? So nevertheless, we started Bible study on campus 2002 with 6 students. It was awesome. 3 of the students gave their lives to Christ in like the first 3 months. It was really sweet. In fact, I brought a picture of a couple of the dudes here, and this guy in the middle, the guy on the left, you know him. I just put him in the picture because I thought it was cool. I could have cropped him out, but Andy in a nice, Santa hat. So nevertheless, John is in the middle. John and Lindsay Cronmiller met their first year of college in our Bible study, and they got married. So that's kind of cool. We basically marry people. That's what we do. So, but those 2 people, they were in the Bible study the first year. They became Bible study leaders. They became missionary people for New Life. They led Bible studies. They trained people. They influenced people who are influencing the people that are in your groups right now. Them. So then Lindsay also is in a picture with another friend of mine. These 2 ladies here. Lindsay, and on the right is Amanda Kumas. Amanda gave her life to Christ in the backseat of my Honda Prelude with Tammy and I hanging out after breakfast one morning. And I got to watch her. I met her the very first time at that Bible study. And then she became a believer. And she got baptized. And she fell in love with Jesus. And she became a small group leader. The next year, she led small group. I trained her to lead Bible studies, and I was there at the first Bible study. Then she trained other small group leaders. She became part of the system for how we did everything at New Life. She wrote them down because no one felt like writing stuff down, so she would write it down. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do this. So I watched her grow up in Christ. When she went back home, she got married. She moved to Cleveland. She was part of a church there. And after all the years at New Life, her pastor comes to her and says, "Look, we want to start a collegiate ministry at our church. You have lots of experience. Would you please help kick off and lead this collegiate ministry?" And she said, "Well, sure." And then she continued on what we had started even here so many years ago. Here's why I'm going on and on about this. Obviously, I'm very nostalgic right now, and I'm just thinking about all the people that have come through the doors of New Life. But Amanda, Lindsay, John influenced the people who influenced the people who influenced the people that you're looking at right around you right now. I got to watch God grow them up. I got to watch people influence others. We've had more than 1,000 people we've influenced at New Life. Almost 100 people have given their lives to Christ. Almost 100 people have been baptized right here at New Life in this time since 2002. We've sent missionaries around the world. We have missionaries serving in different continents right now on the field. They've come right here. We used to sit in seats just like you're sitting in right now. We helped plant a church at another university where they're reaching hundreds of students right now. And I've been able to watch this whole thing unfold. That to me, look, you might think, okay, Ed, I've always been a pastor to you, but to me, I was just some guy who's trying to follow Jesus. I'm just saying, God, what do you want me to do? I want you to plant a church at Ohio State. I'm like, oh, okay, how do you do that? I don't know how to do that. But I'll follow you, Jesus, I'll do it. And then here's what I got to see. I got to watch God do what he does. It's funny for me to see this and just say to you, listen, God wants to do the same kind of stuff in your life. There were people in that first year, that first church plant, they didn't stick around. They didn't stick around. They missed out on experiencing God. And I think Christianity, here's the thing, Christianity can be one of these things where you read this book and you try to become educated on it. You listen to sermons so you can educate your mind. And that is a really big part of the faith. But I'm telling you, until you experience God, your faith will always be somewhat shallow. There has to be that moment where you actually step forward and say yes to God. And when you do that, God will intersect those moments. And that's where you will truly experience him. And what I really want for everyone here, more than anything else, and it doesn't matter if you're a skeptic, and it doesn't matter if you've been like a follower since you fell out of the cradle, I want you to experience God. You will worship to the same level that you experience God. It's the best thing for you. The question is, what happens if we don't take those steps? We're going to miss out. So how do you keep from missing out? How do you keep from missing out on what God has for your life? That's an incredible passage. And when I was looking back at the first sermon, I realized it's right there at the very first one in the fall of 2003. I preached this passage in Numbers chapters 13 and 14. And so I reformatted it for tonight. So it's not exactly the same, but the message is the same. So I'm going to share just a couple things from it, and let me pray for us just as we kind of dig into this passage. So if you have a Bible or an app, open up to Numbers 13, and I'll kind of walk you through it. I think we're going to have this verses on the screen. But let me pray for us as we move forward. Lord, first off, thank you so much for all that you have done. This is really a testament to you. God, I know that more than anyone because I was there at the beginning and realized how ridiculously ignorant we were on how to plant a church. But God, it is a testament to you that you are still moving in the hearts of students right now, that you are building into their lives, that you are discipling them through us and by your Holy Spirit. God, I pray that tonight would be one of those moments for people that they would connect to you and they would hear from you and they would respond to you. And we trust that in your Son's holy name. Amen. Well, the passage in Numbers 13, let me give you a little bit of background. So you remember Adam and Eve, right? And then there's Noah, and then, the flood, and then the world gets repopulated. God chooses a man named Abraham, and through Abraham's family, his lineage, he's going to show the whole world who he is. Those Israeli people are Israelites, and they had, Abraham had Isaac and Jacob had 12 sons, and those 12 sons became part of the 12 tribes. They ended up down in Egypt for 400 years as slaves, and then God used Moses to kind of bring them up out of Egypt and cross into what was going to be the promised land. And right now they're kind of in the desert before they hit into what present-day Israel is. And here's what happens. And first, let me just say this about how do we keep from missing out on the experience of God. It takes boldness to follow the commands of God. It takes boldness to follow the commands of God. And in chapter 13, verse 1 and 2, it says this. Now the Lord said to Moses, "Send some of the men to explore the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. From each ancestral tribe sent one of its leaders." So like I said, there were 12 tribes of Israel. They chose one young man to go out and become a spy in this land, which is present-day Israel. Their job was to go for 40 days, and they were going to survey the land. They were going to see, could our crops grow there? What kind of fruit grows there? Could our animals live there? Are there trees? And more importantly, what kind of enemies do we have? Are there really strong fortified cities? Are there strong armies? Is it just peasant people? What's the deal? Who are we going to be up against? So for 40 days, they kind of surveyed the land, and they grabbed some stuff. And imagine the Israelites kind of waiting, for a month or more, to wait for these guys to come back. They finally get back, and here's what they said in 13, verse 26. It says this. They came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. Now there they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. "We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here's its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified, and they're very large. We even saw the descendants of the Anak there. The Amalekites live in the Negev, the Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea along the Jordan." And Caleb, so I kind of missed a line there just about the kind of people that were these large, powerful people, the Amalekites. But then Caleb stands up, so in the midst of telling about all of these people that they're going to have to face, then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, "Look, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it." So imagine these 12 guys get back, and they tell, "Here's what we saw." And everyone's like, "God has given us this land. It sounds awesome. The grass grows, we can have our crops, we can have the food, we can have these cities, the trees, it's plush, it's beautiful. It's better than anything we had down in Egypt. It's an awesome place to live." But here's the deal. There's people here, 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 and they're all, this one set of people, they're like super tough dudes. They're huge, and we look like grasshoppers to them. They're just monstrous. And so we're going to have to face them. And now the people are like, "What? What are you talking about?" And Caleb goes, "Listen, calm down. We can do this. We can do this." Caleb had boldness. God gave him a command. "I'm going to give you this land." And it was Caleb that stood up and said, we can do this. Boldness is the opposite of fearfulness. It's willingness to get things done despite the risk. Caleb's looking at the risk and going, "We can do this, even though it is a risk." That is boldness. And if you're going to try to follow the commands of God, it is going to take boldness. Let me tell you, everyone here has to learn something about boldness on all kinds of levels. Let me tell you something I learned about boldness, okay? It's a true story. I was 21 years old. My brother, who I lived with, he's a year older than me. During the year we lived together, he used to go out to all the clubs, like every Friday and Saturday night. And he would always come home and tell me these wild tales of all the awesome things that he did. And he was so excited. I met these people, and blah, blah. It was great. He'd just come home and he would be like, it was the greatest day of his life, every time he went. And he goes, when you turn 21, I'm going to take you. I'm like, okay. He goes, you want to meet some girls, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, so I'll take you and I'll show you what we'll do, and then, you'll dance with girls. I'm like, okay. And so he goes, you ready? I'm like, all right. So we go to the club, and I said, what do you do? He goes, well, you're going to have to go up and ask a girl to dance. I'm like a stranger? Yeah. Like, you just go up to a stranger and ask her to dance? Yeah. I'm like, well, what if they say no? A lot of them will. I said, boost of confidence. I said, so they just say no, and then what do you do? He goes, then you just walk on. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way. At this point, I have zero game. Do you understand what I'm saying? Fellas, do you hear me? Okay, listen. So he takes me to this place. It's a double-layered, club, okay? So the big center has this huge dance floor, and there's 100 people dancing on the dance floor, and there's this big outside rim of where all the people are. So my brother says, okay, come with me. I'm like, well, what do we do? And he goes, well, I'll kind of show you around the place. I'm like, okay. So we're just walking, and he goes, do you kind of get a feel for it? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I said, well, what do we do now? He goes, well, I always like to stand somewhat near the bathroom. I'm like, that's just weird. He said, every girl goes to the bathroom. I said, oh. Guys, that was free of charge. Straight from my brother, okay? Listen. So I, of course, have no idea what to do. My brother asked the girl to dance, and she says yes, and he's out on the floor dancing he's just having a great time, and there's a whole crowd of people, and he's having fun, and I'm sitting here by myself going, so I'm kind of standing there, and, I don't know how long I was there, and I look over, and there's a girl, cute as a button, looking right at me, smiling. I go, and now I'm like, my heart is beating, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I better, oh my gosh. So I look up, and I go, she's looking right at me, I go, I just didn't know what to say. I thought, you idiot, go say something. And then I battled in my mind for, I don't know how long it was probably a good 20 minutes. And by that time, she was gone. And I'm so stupid. So then, okay, I don't know how long, then my brother comes back, and we're talking. I'm like, how'd you do that? I'm like, and then he goes and dances with another person. I'm by myself again. It was just all night long. Finally, after 2 hours, I see the girl. I'm like, I go up to her with my best line. I said, would you like to dance? And she said, I'm sorry, honey, not now. We're leaving. And she walked with her group right out the door. I'm like, no, she wanted to dance. I was battling in my head. I'm so stupid. Listen, everyone has a little battle with boldness, but that battle changed my life. I'll tell you how. Because I learned that it was better to risk rejection than to have that feeling of not doing anything. And so in my mind, I learned I've got to be bold. And it came in really handy when I met this chick. Listen, people. I took one look at her and I said, she will make pretty babies. I'm like, I have to have her. I did not know her name, but I would not make that mistake twice. She turned so red. Everyone turned around to her. Listen, you can't pay money for something like cool. Anyway, listen. Everyone has to learn boldness in certain ways. You have to learn to risk fears in order to do anything. And we all learn little ways to become bold. But it's the same thing with God. God must have put us in positions where we have to trust Him. We have to learn boldness with God. And that's the second line. The boldness that God requires is rooted in trusting in God. The boldness that God requires is rooted in trusting in God. The next passage that I want to read starts right there after Caleb had stood up in verse 30. And in verse 31 it says this, "But the men who had gone up with him said, 'We can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are.'
and they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. And they said, the land we explored devours those living in it, and all the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of the Anak that come from Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. 14:1 says, that night all the people of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. And all the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron. And the whole assembly said to them, if only we had died in Egypt or in this desert. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to each other, we should choose a leader and go back to Egypt. So imagine these Israelites were down in Egypt as slaves. God sends Moses, and through Moses and everything God did, he brings them up out of Egypt into this place where they're on the cusp of entering the land that God has prepared for them. And they're basically like, look, we're going to die. God's going to leave us out here. We're going to go and die. And the people, they're going to take our kids. And it'd be better if we just go back to Egypt. So let's get a leader and let's go back to Egypt. That's the plan. I say this because, listen, anytime you step out to follow the commands of God, anytime you hear from God, you read in his word, or you sense God's telling you to do something, every time that happens, there's going to be some type of opposition. There's going to be some obstacle that takes place. You're going to see it in your mind. You're going to be, oh man, maybe this isn't going to work out well. Or maybe I shouldn't. And then you tell someone what you're thinking about doing, and the first thing they say is, oh, you better not do that. I think of a time Andy came to me, and he was getting ready to go overseas. And and his family was not happy at all that he was going to go overseas. Imagine going to your parents and being like, Mom, Dad, I'm going to be a missionary for this amount of time overseas, and I'm so excited about it. And they say, no way. Do you know how many times over the years I've seen that? Students trying to take a step with God, and the first thing that happens is there's some type of opposition. But this next section is so awesome. This is what I love about the Bible. There's always something in here. Look at what happens in verse 5 in chapter 14. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down in front of the whole Israelite assembly gathered there. And then Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes and said to the entire Israelite assembly, the land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into that land, and a land flowing with milk and honey. He will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will swallow them up. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. Can you hear their boldness? It wasn't, look, we're tougher than they are. Look, I am a super duper warrior. Trust me. None of that. It was, you realize God is with us. We will swallow them up because God is with us. He has given them into our hands. They were sober in their judgment. They weren't being ridiculous. They understood what they were facing. But their trust in God was so strong, they were willing to be bold. And in front of everybody, they were willing to say, let's go follow God. That boldness is rooted in trusting in God. And that's the same kind of thing that we need. If you're going to experience God, there's going to be this moment where you know what the Word says, you know what God's telling you, and you actually have to do it. And then when you do that, in trusting God, that boldness, God will meet you there. That's when you will experience Him. I have seen it over the years so many times in watching students who take steps with God. I could mention tons. Just Andy, for example. I met him as a freshman. He was a hot mess. I mean that in the most beautiful way. I learned the definition of hot mess is basically someone who's out of control and yet still attractive. Yeah, let that sink in. Andy was a hot mess. And so now he's the leader of New Life. Step by step in faith, God has met him there. And as he's experienced God, he continues to grow in confidence and boldness. And God has prepared him. He's the leader of New Life. I could mention so many people. I could mention Andrew John. First conversation I had with him, he's telling me where the fall advance his freshman year, and he said, I don't belong here. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I think I'm going to go to Cedarville, which is a Christian college here in Central Ohio. And I said, why are you going to go? He goes, I don't belong here. That's not who I am. Now, he wants to dedicate his time and his energy and effort and his prayers to change OSU on behalf of the gospel. The guy who wanted to get out of here because he didn't fit in now wants to change the culture on behalf of the gospel. How does that happen? Christy and Chris up here leading us here along with the band. I mean, I remember their first year at OSU, their hearts were cold towards God. And now they help us to worship God. That happens step by step by step. Those little steps where you step out in faith and God meets you there and you experience God. That's what gives you the confidence to continue to step out. Let me tell you about one more person. This is more recent to me, really important to me these last couple of years. I want to mention Matt McCracken. Matt, for 3 years at Ohio State, he had never been in my group. He was always part of someone else's group. So I always knew the leader of the group, and I'd always say to the leader, I'm like, hey, how's that McCracken doing? How's he doing? Is he growing? Is he stepping out? What's going on? And I always heard everything was the same. Matt's a great guy. Matt was always here every Sunday. He served. He was available. He was at the advances. I mean, and I never had to have a conversation with Matt where I'm like, dude, how can you accidentally get hammered and sleep with someone? You know what I'm saying? I never had that conversation with Matt. I've had that conversation with lots of people. Just never Matt. Matt's a good guy. 3 years. I'm like, but there's something missing with Matt. So I said, I know it. I'll ask him to be my co-leader of Bible study. That'll be fun. So I sat down with him. I'm like, and we had conversations over the years. I'm like, Matt, how would you like to be a co-leader with me in Bible study? He goes, okay. I'm like, let me tell you what we'll do. I'll start leading at the beginning, but I'll train you, and then you'll be leading the Bible study, and by the end of the year, you'll be training someone else. He's like, okay. You want to do this? He's like, yeah. I said, there's something I want you to do, though. I've been working on this course. Many of you guys know the Course 101, which is basically a kind of a 4-week class on basics of Christianity. And I said, I want you to be able to teach this to the group. But first, I want you to teach it to someone who's completely an atheist, or at least agnostic, but they're far from God. He said, is that right? I'm like, yeah. He said, well, how do you do that? I said, well, here's what we're going to do. We'll pray. I said, I'll pray that God gives you somebody, and you pray that God gives me somebody. He's like, okay. He had no comment. I could see in his eyes, there's no way this is going to happen. So we start praying for each other. And a couple weeks later, we look at each other, and we're like, I think God has given me somebody. Someone he never would have expected said yes. Said, I want to go through this course with you. A non-Christian, a person he was friends with, and was saying, yes, I'm willing to go through this course with you. So he looks at me and goes, what am I going to do now? I'm like, it's fine. Just trust God. So he starts praying. He goes to the material so he can kind of know the material. But imagine going to someone who you know is absolutely not a Christian, and you're going to share the gospel with them over the course of 4 weeks. You're going to share your testimony of how God changed your life. That's a little intimidating. So he starts praying. And then he comes back to me and says, you're not going to believe this. He had so many questions. He was so open. And I kept sharing, and it went great. Because I prayed and prayed and prayed. I was so worried it was going to go horrible. I didn't know what I was going to say. I'm like, his eyes are big as silver dollars. And he kept going, and this kept happening. And by the end of it, he said, the guy wants to go through the book of John. Now, I tell you this, not because you need to go out and do what Matt did. I tell you this because I saw something happen in Matt. It changed Matt. I saw his confidence in when he was leading small group change. I saw his boldness change in the way he was leading. I saw the way he was reaching out. I saw the way he worshiped God was different than it was before. Do you know why? Because you can know this and have good character. But there's still going to come a time when God is going to ask you to do something that you cannot control. And you are going to have to trust him with boldness. And that boldness has got to be rooted in God. I want that for all of us. I want that for every one of you guys. I don't want you to miss an opportunity, because here's the thing. Every missed opportunity has a cost. That's the last thing I just want to share, is that every missed opportunity has a cost. What God said to them after that whole ordeal between the Israelites, in verse 10 and 11 in chapter 14, it says, but the whole assembly talked about stoning them. They want to take Caleb and Joshua and Moses and Aaron and stone them. But then the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting to all the Israelites. And the Lord said to Moses, how long will these people greet me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me? And in spite of all the miraculous signs I have performed among them. I mean, God is clearly not happy. He's clearly upset. Let me tell you what happened. The 10 guys, I didn't bother to mention their names to you because you wouldn't recognize them. Boys are named Joshua and Caleb all the time. Do you know why? Because Joshua and Caleb had trusted in God. And for 3,500 years, there have been little Calebs and little Joshuas running around, some of them with beards. I mean, it's just because you name people after things that you admire and people that you admire. The 10 guys, they died. Plague. They were gone. The people who grumbled against God, God said to them, here's the deal. 1 year for every day they spent up in Israel checking out my land I was going to give them. 40 years they spent in the desert wandering around like nomads. They were not allowed to enter into their land that God was giving them. They had said, what about our children? They'll be taken as plunder. Here's what God said. Those children, everyone 20 years and below, they will actually enter into the land and they will take the land and they're going to watch how I work and it's going to become their land. God will defeat the enemies and give them their nation. And the people 20 and below, they entered in. But everyone who was 20 and older did not enter in with the exception of Joshua and Caleb. Can you imagine? It wasn't just that they missed out on the nation and the blessing of the nation. It's that they missed out on God. They missed out on what God was going to do in and through their life. A chance to experience God. There's a cost. There's a real cost to the missed opportunities. You know, I mentioned that silly, instance when I was 21. But as I said, that you have to learn to become bold. And as you learn to take steps with God, you become bolder and bolder and bolder. So to this point in my life, I want to share the gospel with anybody I can whenever I get the opportunity. And I don't want to miss one. I never want to miss one. And I don't want it to be for a lack of boldness. As you guys know, I don't know if you guys know this, but Chris Hall, it's his birthday today. Did I tell you guys that? Chris also found this girl to be really sweet, and he decided to marry her. So, Chris and Emily are getting married soon, coming up in June, right? You guys heard of that? Well, we're doing premarital counseling right now. A couple weeks ago, they decided to come over. We're going to have like one of our little talks before, premarital counseling stuff. And Tammy said, hey, why don't we get dinner ahead of time? I said, what would you like? She goes, how about Texas Roadhouse? And I'm like, okay, sweet, okay, we'll eat Texas Roadhouse. So we call them, hey, what do you want? We'll order, we'll have the food there, so when you guys show up, we'll have a cool meal, it'll be great. And so we call Texas Roadhouse, and to carry out order, and the girl's taking the order. I'm not thinking anything of it, and she said, I need a name for the order. I said, my name is Ed. And she said, oh, my dad's name is Ed. I'm like, yeah, it's easy to spell, it's cool, I didn't know what to say, and oftentimes I'm a little bit awkward, so anyway, when it's time to go, I go over, and here's the deal, the Texas Roadhouse, and I don't know if you've ever been there, Andy, at a Texas Roadhouse carryout, but they have like a little room that's kind of like separate from, you can go in the main place, but the carryout area is like a little tiny area. And so I walked in, and the girl greeted me, and I said, yeah. And she goes, do you have a carryout order? I said, yeah. She goes, what's your name? I said, Ed. And she goes, okay, your order's not up yet. I said, well, can I go ahead and pay for it? And she said, sure. So I go up there, and her name was Angela. I said, Angela, are you Ed's daughter? And she laughed. She goes, yeah, Ed's my dad. And I said, are you guys close? And she goes, well, he lives in North Carolina. And I said, oh, what are you doing here? She goes, oh, I go to school here. I go to Ohio State. I'm a senior, getting ready to graduate, actually. I said, oh, is that right? I said, what's your field that you're studying? She goes, psychology. I said, psychology? Are you going on to grad school? She goes, no. And she kind of laughed. I said, are you going to be like what are you going to do with that? She goes, I don't know. I said, okay. She goes, I wasn't sure, and there's so much pressure on you to declare, and every field I was in, I didn't like it, but I really loved the coursework, so I just took the coursework to graduate, and I just did it, and now I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, okay, all right, well, have you thought about maybe, like going into social work? She goes, well, here's the thing, I have a real high empathy level for people, so when I'm around people who have lots of problems, I take their problems on myself, and it's completely unhealthy. I don't think I should be a social worker. I said, I don't think you should. I think that's probably very smart on your part. I said, well, what is it you like? She goes, I just love people. I want to be in some kind of field where I can help people. I said, have you thought about being a nurse? She said, I hate the blood and the needles. I said, that's a problem for you. That's going to be a problem too. I said, well, what are you going to do? She goes, I have no idea. I said, could I give you some advice on how to interview? She said, yes. I said, you can spin this. Let me tell you how to spin it. When you get into an interview, you say, yeah, I got a degree in psychology because I knew that I'm going to be working with people, and I love working with people, and I understand that it would benefit me and whatever organization I become a part of to understand how to do problem solving and deal with people in public relations. I just figured it would be a great, place for me to become something better for a company to hire me because I would learn about how to deal with people. She goes, that sounds pretty good. I said, free of charge. Cheers. So we're kind of sitting there. Now at this point, I'm not really sure what to say because we just had this little talk, and I'm sitting down now. She's at her little checkout area, and I said something like, "Well, so what do you think you're going to end up doing?" She goes, "I really don't know." I said, "Well, can I ask you something?" I said, "I've worked with college students for 15 years at Ohio State as a minister, and every year I see college students who are constantly having to deal with that pressure of figuring out what are they going to major in, and it's really hard for students." She goes, "Yeah." I said, "But can I ask you, how's your spiritual life going?" And she instantly, her demeanor changed. Like, you could see like a wave of guilt flush over her. She goes, "Well, it's not nearly what it should be." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She said, "Well, I haven't been to church at all in college, and I was raised in a certain kind of church, and I know I should be doing a lot more, I said, well, can I ask you? I mean, you don't have to feel bad about it. I said, maybe there's a reason God has you wired this way. She says, "What do you mean?" And just then, as I'm kind of talking to her, the door kind of opens, and the girl actually bringing my food comes in. And I said to her, I said, "Hold on a second." So we had to go through the food order, and I'm like, dang it. Like, I'm going to share the gospel with this girl somehow. Like, we're getting somewhere. And my food. So anyway, the girl comes out, and we go over the food, and she goes back to stand behind the counter, and she doesn't leave the room. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I have no choice. I'm going to have to be like bold, because I know it might be awkward for her. But I said, "Angela," I said, "can I just say this?" I said, "You being wired that way, that you're kind of a high empathy factor for people, and you have a lot of caring, and you want to help people." I said, "The reason I asked you about your spiritual life is because I believe that God made us all for a purpose, and He wired you specifically for that purpose. And if He made you that way, maybe there's a real reason why God has you wired that way. He has you just for a purpose, specifically just for you. He's made you this way." And I think if you take the time to not worry about why you haven't been towards God, but if you go towards God, there's an opportunity for you to understand why God's made you this way. I just believe that you could be an asset wherever you're supposed to be, but you need to connect to God. And she looked at me, she goes, "Wow, okay." And so I went to leave. I said, "Angela, I got to tell you something before I go." I said, "I hope that when I come back, you're not here." She looked at me like, "What?" I said, "I hope you've landed your dream job." And she looked at me, she goes, "Please don't forget me. Don't forget me." Now listen, I want to plant seeds for God, for Jesus, and for the gospel everywhere I go. And I'm going to take advantage of every opportunity I get. If I get that opportunity, I'm going to look for it. This is who I am. I don't want to miss out. But I kept thinking, I'll bet you one of you guys know her. She's getting ready to graduate. I don't know if you had a class with her. I don't know if you have a mutual friend. You might have lived in the dorms with her. You might be passing through like the Oval at the same time she passed through the Oval on the other side every day. Man, you guys are surrounded by people just like Angela, who are waiting for someone to reach out to them to hear the message of the gospel. You have an opportunity to change the campus every time you're on it, and you have to see yourself in light of the way God has wired you as a carrier of the message of the most incredible King of Kings who died for you. That you have opportunities all around you. I don't know what's going to happen this fall when the new class comes in, but my prayer is that God will use you to reach the next generation. And then we'll be able to tell stories together. Like we get together at the next wedding, maybe the giant wedding or the next one or whatever it is, and will you be able to tell me about what God is doing in and through the students of New Life? And if you're here and you feel like, man, I've been missing opportunities, I've been that person, I've been the good person, I've been showing up, but man, I haven't really stepped out. Can I tell you something? Unlike the Israelites, we have the benefit of the King dying for us. So that those times we missed opportunities and made even like worse decisions, we can go to God and say, God, I am sorry. That's the beauty of the gospel. He paid the penalty for all of us so that we can simply surrender our lives to God and say, God, I'm sorry. I submit my life to you. Use me any way you choose. I want to live on behalf of your gospel. As I share all that, and obviously, these are the things I've shared with you over and over again in different ways, all the time, because it's just what I believe, that God wants to use you as ambassadors for Christ, and The message of the gospel is life. And if you help connect people to the source of life, they're going to thrive. And my prayer is that you will thrive as you experience God and you step out in faith. So how are you doing with that? How are you doing? If you had to look at your life and say, like, it was just you and God with a one-on-one, what's that thing that God has been asking you to do that you've been timid about? What's that thing that you just know, man, God has wanted me to take that step? Even if it's a small step. You just know, I just want to encourage you to talk to God. Say, God, give me the courage to be bold and take even a small step with you. All right, let me pray for you guys. And I think we're going to sing again and worship the King. So let me pray. Lord, I thank you so much for being just such a gracious God that loves us in spite of the times that we just miss out because we're just afraid.